by COVID-19 pandemic, not only in South Africa, but indeed throughout the world, which many of the speakers seem to ignore. The aim of the Economic Reconstruction and Recovery Plan is inclusive growth, the creation of sustainable jobs, and the support of livelihoods and the improvement of infrastructure. Over the years, state-owned enterprises and government more generally have played an important role in the South African economy. As can be seen now, government has had an even more significant role to play during this pandemic, both in South Africa and indeed around the world. For business, the economy, domestic politics, and indeed international cooperation, as the Financial Times points out, governments are likely to be permanently more interventionist than before. This, of course, runs contrary to the DA mantras that we hear each time a member from the DA speaks. Particularly significant is the pressure on all governments throughout the world to build back better. So in South Africa, well-operated and financially sound SOEs are crucial for infrastructure services such as energy, transport, water, all of which, amongst others, are necessary to grow our economy and to ensure, above all, equity. There is an opportunity to transform the economic system and ensure that it serves our national interest and all 60 million people in South Africa. However, in order to enable this, we need to reform and restructure the SOE sector, which has been so badly impacted by state capture. The SOEs became the honeypots of state capture, largely because of the large procurement spend. As Daniel Kaufman, an expert in state capture, says, and I quote, "Corruption is the name, but procurement is the game," end of quotation. We are still recovering from the terrible damage caused by state capture. In a nutshell, the SOE package, as part of the Economic Reconstruction and Recovery Plan, will ensure that we recover from this ruthless looting and destruction by ensuring that we reposition Eskom for energy security, the increased use of clean, renewable sources of energy, and the energy mix IRP 19, and implement a just transition in the years that lie ahead. Secondly, introduce key changes in the freight logistics, rail, ports, and large investments in infrastructure that will support the South African economy, and partnerships, particularly with black private sector, through appropriate concessions. Thirdly, to take the faltering Denel through a process in which a new business model emerges. And finally, to conclude that business rescue chapter of SAA. These strategic areas will be accompanied by other interventions across the SOEs, including a review of their mandates, the recovery of funds lost through theft and looting, the review of contracts irregularly obtained, change procurement policies for efficiency and integrity, ensure the implementation of localization policies, and ensure that economic transformation takes place, empowering both small businesses and to facilitate the growth of new businesses and concessions. Mr. President, you said, and I quote, "To support our reform process, the Presidential State-Owned Enterprises Council has outlined a clear set of reforms that will enable these vital public companies to fulfill their mandate for growth and development," end of quote. Further, in the Economic Reconstruction and Recovery Plan, it is stated that, and I quote, "We are also reducing the reliance of SOEs on the fiscus by intensifying efforts to stabilize strategic companies, accelerate the rationalization of SOEs, and where appropriate, identifying strategic partners," end of quote. In 2021, honorable members, we shall witness changes to the architecture of SOEs and the direction that these SOEs take. A set of structural reforms is being introduced to ignite growth in the economy and to address our capacity challenges, which have been compounded by the COVID-19 pandemic. SOEs will take the lead in, for example, research and development, innovation and technology development, support ICT developments, and these activities will impact on renewable energy, address climate change, and support us in education and the health sectors. And in doing so, we shall actively be seeking to co-create wealth in partnerships with the private sector, particularly ensuring that such partnerships transform this economy. I shall outline the essential elements of what we might call the SEO package to give effect to the objectives of the Economic Recovery and Reconstruction and Recovery Plan and the 2021 SONA proposals. In the first instance, energy security and ESCOM. A priority of the plan is to speedily increase energy generation capacity and to guarantee a reliable electricity supply. Restoring ESCOM to operational and financial health and accelerating its restructuring process is central to this objective. Government's main objective is to stabilize this electricity supply and ensure that South African businesses and others who wish to invest in South Africa have the certainty that they require for investment purposes. In this regard, the DPE will work with the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy and other departments to ensure that all sources of energy are accessed for this purpose. We are following an integrated, coordinated approach in this regard. Firstly, by ESCOM continuing to intensify the maintenance of power stations, improve emissions compliance, and complete the construction and the repair of Medupi and Kusile, about which we have been absolutely transparent. ESCOM will rapidly develop and deploy new and clean sources of electricity. It will also procure more generation capacity by opening up the power system to renewable sources of clean energy and other forms of energy sources as well. We will finalize the options to resolve the debt burden of ESCOM, which is a serious problem, and ensure its financial sustainability. The establishment of a separate legal entity for transmission is in line with the ESCOM roadmap and will be achieved by December 2021 at the latest. ESCOM should play a leading role in facilitating the connection of renewable energy and other sources of energy by expanding and strengthening the transmission grid, including what the President announced in relation to municipalities. ESCOM will itself participate in the building of renewable energy, and the private sector partners must build a significant part of the renewable capacity that we need to introduce. Crucial to all of this is the execution of a just energy transition. The transition to a low-carbon future is not only about the introduction of renewables, it will also serve and impact in numerous ways on a wide range of companies, jobs, and communities. ESCOM has established a Just Energy Transition Office, whose role is to firstly ensure that we accelerate the repurposing and repowering of power stations and use them for alternate purposes, actively pursue a share in renewable energy allocation in line with the Integrated Resource Plan, and implement an integrated socioeconomic strategy, including the reskilling of workers. There will be a very carefully crafted ESCOM social plan to ensure that all participants and stakeholders in ESCOM are winners in this particular process. Chairperson, on the logistics front and the transport sector, we will ensure that there is a successful implementation of the ambitions set out in the Economic Reconstruction and Recovery Plan, and thereby stimulate economic growth. Our ports and rail must become efficient and competitive. We will see new capital projects and investments taking place at the three major Transnet port terminals, Cape Town, Richards Bay, and Durban, including the PE area as well. We will ensure that Transnet will appoint a turnkey service provider for the extension of the rail corridor called South Core to enable auto exports through Port Elizabeth. This will increase the throughput of complete automotive units by 3 times when it is completed. By the end of 2021, the PE manganese terminal will be decommissioned and will be moved to Nuka. Transnet in partnership with the Transnet Ports Terminal, will build a new high-performance manganese export terminal with an expected medium-term capacity of 16 million tons. Similarly, as far as Transnet Ports are concerned, an initiative to reposition Durban as a hub port for the Southern Hemisphere and shipping, Southern Hemisphere shipping will see Transnet and the National Ports Authority and the National Port Terminals initiate a process of concessions of port terminals. The Durban Container Terminal will see a process through which we will identify an international terminal operator to partner with Transnet and to improve its own performance at this level. Denel will have a new business model within the next 2 or 3 months, and that will reposition Denel as an effective participant and leader within the defense industry area. SAA will see the completion of the business rescue process and finally the exit of the business rescue practitioners. The SOE Council that the President has established will undertake further work on mandates, on innovative partnerships, and end the bailouts from the fiscal system. We will also make endeavors, Chairperson, as I conclude, to recover funds that will be taken, that have been taken from SOEs. In this regard, if need be, criminal charges will be put in place. And secondly, we will trace these funds wherever they might be in the world to ensure that the money that has been stolen by all sorts of role players is returned to South Africa and used for the benefit of South Africans in a more general sense.
Honorable
Localization.
Your time is expired.
Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Lotrit will be the next.